Hello. Today, I'm joined by Theresa Greenfield, Democratic nominee for Iowa Senate. I'm Dave Dreeszen, managing editor of the Sioux City Journal. Also listening in on the call are two other members of our editorial board, editor Bruce Miller and visual editor Tim Hines. Theresa, good morning.
Good morning, Dave. I'm doing my best to stay.
Tell us a little bit about, you've been in the race for, I think, running for Senate for more than a year, I think. And tell us a little bit of why you decided to seek this office.
Well, Dave, I got in this race, you're right, in June of 2019. It's certainly been an honor to run for the United States Senate. And here we are, 8 days out from Election Day. And I am really fired up. You know, I got in this race to put Iowans first. I'm a businesswoman, worked much of my career in small businesses. I'm a mom with 4 kids. I'm a military mom, and I'm a farm kid. And my dad always said on the farm, there's no boy jobs and there's no girl jobs, just jobs that need to get done. And I believe there's just a lot of jobs that we need to get done in Washington. And frankly, we need to attack them and work on them like we do in our hometowns, where we come together to solve problems. And so I certainly will work with anyone to get our jobs done. And right now in Iowa and around this country, we've got some tough times. I think this is probably one of the most consequential times probably in my life, with the pandemic, with the derecho, with bankruptcy rates at an 8-year high, with seniors being gouged for prescription drug costs. And so I understand a lot of those struggles. One, I grew up during that farm crisis. I saw bankruptcy auctions were like on a weekly basis, and families left our communities. My family darn near lost it all. I struggled and worked hard and put myself through college. And I had to work hard to rebuild a life after being widowed and becoming a single mom at the age of 24, and added with a lot of help from Social Security and some elbow grease, worked my way up to being the president of a commercial real estate company, real small, 8 employees. So I am willing to work with anybody, like you do in a small business, like we do in our hometowns, to tackle these tough issues: healthcare, leadership in this pandemic, both the health crisis and the economic crisis, rebuilding our farm economy. So I want to see commodity prices go up and drug prices go down. I think that's what we should be working on, and making sure that we're giving a fair shot to everyone and our hard workers. So I'm fired up to be in the race. That's a lot of the reasons why I got in this race. And I think Senator Ernst has forgotten Iowans. She had 6 years, and she's forgotten our seniors, certainly forgotten our farmers, and has forgotten her Iowa values. She has voted 97% of the time with Mitch McConnell and her party leaders, and leaving Iowans behind for her big corporate donors and her party politics. Again, I got in this fight for all of us, and will work with anyone as the next junior senator from Iowa.
Okay, great. Now, as you probably know, Iowa has a history of electing candidates to the U.S. Senate who have had some, have served previously elected experience, in the case of like Senator Grassley and former Senator Tom Harkin, both served in the U.S. House before being elected to the Senate. And your opponent, the current Senator Joni Ernst, also it was in the Iowa Senate for a number of years. I guess, how would you answer that as, making the leap from, you just laid out your broad background, but making that leap, and some may say you may not have that experience to work in a body like that, where there's only 100 members and so forth. So
yeah, no, thanks, Dave. Well, I tell you, I think I've got exactly the kind of experiences we need. One, our government was set up to be a citizen legislature. And so we need to be encouraging our citizens to run for everything, by the way, up and down the tickets, and be part of leading in their communities. But after my first husband died, I studied community planning, and I worked for about 14 years at the local level with planning commissions, neighborhood groups, city councils, town boards, county boards. And you learn pretty quickly at the local level, where mayors serve the entire community all the time, that the pothole in the middle of the street, that's not a Republican problem, and it's not a Democratic problem. It's a problem we need to solve. And as I travel the state, I hear people want to end that divisiveness. It's part of the reason I got in this race. I'm going to work with anyone and bring those kinds of skills. I'm also a businesswoman. and have worked in small businesses, run small businesses through some really tough times, some good economic times. I know how hard it is to keep the lights on, and it's a lot of pride that we provide paychecks. The last business that I was the president of, we had 8 employees. Frankly, Iowa is a state of small towns and small businesses, just like the ones that I work for. They're struggling right now. Whether I stop by a bowling alley out in Waukee, or I talk to a cleaning business up in Fort Dodge, it doesn't matter where I travel the state. So many of our small businesses, their revenues are down 60 and 80%. They need leadership who really understands the needs they have. And then, of course, the farm crisis. It's a big reason I got in this race. Those decisions that get made in Washington, they affect our lives. And with bankruptcy rates at an 8-year high, with net farm income down about 75% since 2013, we need to end haphazard trade and reckless tariffs and restore the RFS to make sure that our farmers, our small businesses, and our manufacturers who've laid people off have a real shot to rebuild their economy.
Okay. You mentioned it's no secret there is a lot of divisiveness in Washington right now, and just today, as you know, the Senate is voting on the nomination of Judge Barrett to the Supreme Court. I guess, but first question, if you were in the Senate today, would you support her nomination? And then secondly, there's been a lot of talk about for the Democrats or some of their allies thinking, well, because of what happened with Judge Garland and now with the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and quickly filling her seat before the election, that maybe if Vice President Biden would win the presidency and the Democrats would have control of the Senate, that they should look at expanding the court to beyond the 9 members. I guess how do you view both those issues?
Dave, I'm going to take the second one first and the first one second, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I don't support packing the courts, and I've been really clear about that all along. Matter of fact, I think that kind of rhetoric that comes out of Washington is part of what Iowans hate about Washington, D.C. It's divisive conversation, not conversation that brings us together. And frankly, if we want to reform democracy, I think we need to end the political corruption and get big money out of our politics. I'll set that aside for now. But as a United States Senator, I'm looking forward to, and I do believe it's an incredibly solemn responsibility to vet all nominees. And I'm going to be looking to understand, how fair they will be, how impartial they'll be. I want to know about their experience to serve this lifetime role. And I'm looking forward to meeting with each of them too, to ask lots of questions. Certainly some of them I'll talk to them about would include ending Citizens United, or their stands and thinking on Roe v. Wade being settled law, workers' rights. But I'll tell you the biggest one is healthcare. Healthcare is the #1 topic I hear about from businesses, from individuals. #1, hands down, topic, whether it's high costs, whether it's premiums, whether it's deductibles, whether it's seniors being gouged, mental health care, addiction care, rural access. Healthcare is on the ballot. Iowans need to know that Senator Joni Ernst voted repeatedly to end the Affordable Care Act, which, one, not only would gut your protections for pre-existing conditions, but likely would end Medicaid expansion, which she didn't support as an Iowa senator in 2013. She voted against Medicaid expansion. And the data is really clear that states that have taken advantage of Medicaid expansion have been able to keep those rural hospitals open. And I know they're struggling right now, but when I've stopped by Boone County Hospital, for example, and not only toured, which was great, but sat down at their boardroom table to talk about their finances, it was really clear that Medicaid expansion has been really their lifeline. And so all of this is on the ballot in this election.
Mm-hmm. So on the topic of healthcare, would you support it's gained a lot of support on, particularly among the Democrats, the so-called Medicare for All plan, where essentially you would be phasing out private insurance over time? Would you be supportive of that in the Senate?
No, I don't support Medicare for all, and I've certainly been on record on that since I got in this race. But I will tell you, healthcare is the number one topic, again, that Iowans want solutions to. And believe me, good health is not a Republican thing or a Democratic thing. We all value our good health. And so my focus would be to strengthen and enhance the Affordable Care Act. We've learned a lot over 10 years, but we also know that if we enhance it with a public option, we need to make sure that everybody has access to a healthcare plan. We need to work to make sure it's accessible. And I'll give you a great example. I was just out in Correctionville late last week and met with a farm family that's driving 25 miles for groceries and 25 miles for rural healthcare. And they're really concerned if their rural hospital would close, if they lost Medicaid expansion, like how far they would drive. And so it is a critical issue. So expanding that, building in that public option. As a businesswoman, I'll tell you what, it's going to create competition, and that'll help drive down those prices. And then finally, we need to require Medicare to negotiate for prescription drug costs, bring down those costs, put a couple bucks back in our seniors' pockets. That's important. But also for taxpayers, it's expected to save us about $500 billion. And that's no small chunk of change. As a taxpayer, I'm interested in that kind of efficiency. And so there's a lot we can do. That's where I would get started.
Okay. Another issue you've talked, in your campaign, you talked a lot about is Social Security, kind of oftentimes goes hand in hand with Medicare and Medicaid. And so, but you've, of course, been very, shared your story, how it helped you as a young widowed mother at a point in your life, and as it has, helped seniors and so forth. I guess my question would be, there's kind of a thought that the status quo, even if you're opposed to do something like Senator Ernst about allowing younger workers to invest a portion of their Social Security in private markets and so forth, if that's not a solution, the actuaries have said that if you do nothing, that the trust fund will be depleted by, I think, years to 2034. And even with the pandemic that's going on, it might even be earlier, they're saying, because of so many people losing their job and not paying into the system for that reason. I guess, what do you see as a way to shore up, because 2034 is not that long for now before we may have to face that choice. Do we stop paying benefits or not full benefits? Not any real good options at that point. So.
Well, Dave, I'll tell you, this is an issue that absolutely is personal to me. And it's part of the reason I got in this race. I was widowed at the age of 24. When my husband died, I became a single mom with a 13-month-old, and I was expecting number 2. And it was Social Security benefits. It was his union benefits that really helped us stay out of poverty. I didn't have a way to pay the rent. Now, you don't get rich on Social Security, but I didn't need to. I just needed that hand up to make sure I could pay the rent, get some milk in the refrigerator, get back on my feet. My hometown picked me up. Lots of people helped out. I was able to go back to college and get skills and get that first job as a planner. And so, I wouldn't do what Senator Ernst has done. One, she voted for a tax bill that has increased our debt about $2 trillion. And now it really threatens Medicare and Medicaid, and gave the vast majority of those benefits went to the largest corporations and the extremely wealthy in our country. I think that those corporations and the wealthiest certainly need to pay their fair share. When it comes to Social Security, I'm going to be working to sustain it for generations to come, and not just for grannies, although I want the grannies to know I'm working hard on that, but for young widows, for folks that rely on our supplemental care. This is the backbone of how we have taken care of one another. And not only that, Dave, people have worked hard. You've worked hard. I've worked hard. We've paid into this system every day. We need to make sure we have leaders who are going to sustain it. So things, one, I don't support raising the eligibility age. We have to make sure we keep our local offices open and that we're providing those services in a timely manner. And of course, when it comes to anything that we're looking to sustain, just like our debt, we've got to look everywhere as to how we can make a difference. My position is this: when it comes to tax policy, I'm not going to do anything on the backs of hardworking Iowans, our middle class Iowans. Absolutely not. And then we get back to things like requiring Medicare to negotiate to bring those prices down, and then saving us $500 billion. We need to close loopholes that Senator Ernst protects that allows the largest corporations to ship their jobs overseas. We need those jobs here. We need our economy continuing to grow and rebound. And then I suspect there's a bunch of these items, but here's one. Let's end those tax credits to big pharma that allows them to run TV ads. I don't think that's a good use of taxpayers' investment. I'm going to be working and roll up my sleeves, and I'll work with anyone, by the way, to make sure we're sustaining Social Security. We're keeping that promise to hard-working Americans.
Okay, thank you. Switching gears just a little bit, another issue that you've emphasized, and I've seen there's some outside groups supporting you on, is climate change. Enacting some measures dealing with climate change. Excuse me, I don't remember, but exactly. But do you support any of the framework of what's commonly known as the Green New Deal, or is there any aspects of that you would be supportive of as a senator?
Well, I don't support the Green New Deal, and again, I've been clear about that this entire campaign. But we do have to confront climate change. We have a global climate crisis, and Iowans know what it looks like. Folks that live along the Missouri River, they know that it's that kind of flooding. Southwest Iowa, southeast Iowa. Farmers know it's the higher temperatures, the higher humidities, which affect, germination and pollination, that narrowing up of the planting window, violent storms. So we're not getting 3 inches of rain pleasantly over 3 days. It's coming in 3 hours. And that causes a lot of damage to our soils and our crops and our fields. And so we have to confront climate action. I think about it in two ways, Dave. One, we need to get back into global agreements, working globally. This isn't an Iowa climate crisis. This is a global climate crisis. And then two, I'm going to be focused on what we can do right here in Iowa to grow our economy, grow our jobs, and take advantage of the resources we have to really tackle and confront climate change. Let me give you a couple examples, because I'm sure there's many. Wind. We already have invested in wind. We have a robust wind industry. I believe about 50% of Iowans' electricity comes from wind, or we're on our way to that. Let's keep going. Let's invest in the infrastructure, and let's be exporting our wind, creating jobs here, growing our economy here in Iowa. Two, conservation. And in my Fair Shot for Farmers plan, one of the items that I really want to emphasize on and invest in is conservation. I want to make it a new economic commodity for our farmers, for our landowners. I want them at the table as part of this, so that if we are asking them to sequester carbon, they're getting the economic benefits of it, and we are getting the climate benefits of it by reducing our carbon footprint. So there's an awful lot of opportunity: solar, growing our biofuels, wind, and research to help us understand what the next 50 years could hold for Iowa, whether that's expanding our biofuels into shipping and aviation, whether that's growing a robust bio-based manufacturing industry here in Iowa. What's the next thing we grow, and what is it used in, and how do we make new products with it, and how do we produce that and manufacture it right here? I want to invest in research. We've got some pretty bright minds at all of our universities, and let's put them to work so that we're building a bright economic future and, of course, a renewable future.
Okay. Let's just briefly touch on another often hot button issue is on guns and firearms. Would you be supportive of any? There's been a lot proposed particularly in light of some high-profile shootings in schools and other places in recent years. But any regulations on guns in the Senate? Additional regulations, I should say.
Yeah, Dave, yeah. Well, I grew up on the farm, and, like Iowans, I'm a responsible gun owner. I learned to be responsible growing up. There's a lot of pride, maybe even some competition with getting that freezer filled up in the fall. Everybody likes to take a little venison sausage to their winter snowmobile gatherings. And of course, I often got the task of making sure varmints didn't get our baby pigs, because that's a real threat out on the farm. However, I will tell you my favorite was shoot and skeet with my dad. I loved Sunday afternoons, shoot and skeet. And probably, I don't know, maybe I was better at it than my brothers. Maybe that's why I liked it. But I enjoyed it. And I know Iowans do too. That being said, Iowans across the state tell me that it is way past time that we pass some sensible policies to keep guns out of the hands of people who can hurt themselves and who can hurt others. And so for me, it starts with three things. One, I do support universal background checks. Two, ending gun show loopholes. And then three, investing in research. How do we reduce gun violence? What are those next steps? What does the data tell us to do next? Because moms across this state, responsible gun owning moms, they want those mass shootings to come to an end. And I do too. I want to keep guns out of the hands of folks who can hurt themselves or could hurt other people. And that's where I'd get started, Dave.
Okay, great. So as you know, there's a lot of money being spent in this race. I think in the last 3 months, your campaign alone has raised more than, or somewhere in the neighborhood of 28 million, and Senator Ernst has raised millions, and then there's groups on both sides, all for and against the candidates. And I know you've talked about wanting to end Citizens United, but I mean, the people I talk to, they're just really tired of just the barrage of ads and in some ways the nastiness of the way they put it of a lot of them. I guess, do you feel your campaign has played a role in that, or I guess how you view the issue of how this has evolved to this point?
Yeah, no, thanks, Dave. Great question and topic. Absolutely. Well, I think we can all agree there is too much money in politics. It is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And, outside money groups that are spending on both sides of the aisle, by the way, I certainly can't control them. But my very first policy plan that I published was a plan to end political corruption, to get this kind of big money out of our elections, out of our politics. For me, it focuses on a few things. Yeah, I'd like to end Citizens United. I don't think corporations are people. Two, I'd like to end those dark money groups. The ones you just talked about that run the nasty TV ads that ruin I guess it's Monday Night Football tonight. Yeah. It's going to be awful. And, or your YouTube video. That's right. We need to end those dark money groups, or at least require that they disclose who's donating to them, so we know who's investing in these races and running those nasty ads. And then three, I want to ban corporate PACs. Corporations aren't people. They donate to influence our elected officials. And as part of my campaign, I drew a line in the sand and said, I'm not taking one dime of corporate PAC donations. And it's a sharp contrast. Senator Ernst has taken over $2.4 million in corporate PAC donations, and frankly, has sold out Iowans for her big corporate donors. I mean, she's taken over $200,000 from Big Pharma and sold out our seniors when it comes to those prescription drug costs. She's taken over $450,000 from big oil, Exxon, Marathon, Chevron, and then voted for one of their guys to head the EPA, and the EPA's issued those 85 ethanol waivers. It's been devastating to our industry, to the tune of about 4 billion gallons of demand. I said enough is enough. Senator Ernst, she sold out Iowans for big corporate donors. I got in this fight to put Iowans first. I don't take one dime of corporate PAC donations. And I have a plan to end political corruption. I'm the only one in the race that has a plan to end that kind of political corruption. Because Dave, I'm the only one that wants to end it.
Would would it only be if you ban corporate PACs? Would it only be fair to ban union PAC donations as well?
You know what, Dave? I will look at the whole system, you bet, and work with anyone to make sure that we're getting big money out of our politics.
Okay. Okay. I want to talk about little bit about your campaign. I know things are a little different this cycle with the pandemic going on. But how do you, I guess, how many counties or communities have you visited in Iowa? I know Senator Urs and some of her allies have been critical that you have not been as many places as she has, and vice versa. So, I guess, just tell me a little bit how your travels around the state are going. So,
you bet. Hold on here. I just gotta make sure I've got all these phones off. I thought I did. There. Okay. All right. Well, first off, I think Senator Ernst wants to make this race about our campaign schedules because she's really struggling to come back here and defend her votes to end the Affordable Care Act, gut your protections for pre-existing conditions, her votes to put a fossil fuel lobby at the head of the EPA, which is, gutted that industry to the tune of about 4 billion gallons. Again, I think she's been working pretty hard to keep corn prices down and drug prices high. That said, you're right. COVID is unlike anything when it comes to campaigning. We've done over 350 campaign events around the state. We've been connecting with Iowans in all 99 counties, some of them in person. We certainly are traveling. We're doing our very best to follow public health guidelines as part of our travel. But Dave, so many people are staying home. And so we've also been connecting with teletown hall meetings. We just had one that was solely focused on Northwest Iowa. We get thousands of Iowans that come out to these events. Give them a chance to ask questions. Give me a chance to listen and learn too what their priorities are. That's incredibly important if you're going to lead. Facebook events, Zoom events, and we're going to continue to do all of it up until the polls close on November 3rd.
Okay, great. Staying on the related topic of COVID, in Iowa, although this is not a national or a federal issue, but there's been a lot of talk about whether Iowa should have a mask requirement. I mean, the guidelines are certainly supportive of that or encouraging that. I guess kind of the two-pronged question is: do you think that should be happening in Iowa right now, given what you hear from talking to people? And then secondly, at one time, Vice President Biden kind of floated the idea, or actually proposed, having a national mandate, and that kind of walked that back. It sounded like, but do you think if is that something you could support on a federal level to be required across the nation? So even if governors of states like Iowa are not inclined to do that, then it would be a uniform policy across the country.
Yeah. Well, Dave, I believe that this pandemic is going to be one of the most consequential events of my lifetime, and certainly not only the tragic health consequences, but certainly the economic crisis that goes with this. And we all want to get back to going to football games and concerts. I know I do. And it starts with following the public health guidelines. And I've been calling for months for a phase 4 stimulus package that meets the crisis that we're in. And I've focused on really 3 buckets of investment. 1, health and safety, testing, tracing, PPE, emergency temporary standards for absolutely every industry and every employee, so businesses can open and employees can operate safely. Dave, I still get calls from nurses who are wearing masks, the same mask for 2 shifts. We've got to bring an end to all of that, and we have to make that investment. Second, and then, by the way, that includes a statewide mask mandate. The White House task force has asked for it. We certainly are seeing our infection rates continue to be pretty high here in Iowa. Our hospitalization rates are the highest they've been. We need a statewide mask mandate, not a patchwork network. Every Iowan needs to understand their role in controlling community spread. And the number one thing public health officials recommend is wearing that mask, socially distancing, of course, washing hands. All of these things can help us take care of our communities and, of course, take care of ourselves and our families too, and help us get back to opening everything up. Second, investing in our workers. Unemployment rate across this country is incredibly high. Too many families have lost their jobs. We need another round of extended unemployment benefits so folks can pay their rent and they can buy groceries. We need to have paid sick leave. Right now, people shouldn't have to choose between going to work sick or staying home and losing a paycheck or losing their job. We need people staying home if they're sick or they need to quarantine or they need to isolate. We need them to stay home, and they've got to be able to get that paycheck and keep their job. So those are a number of things. And then three, focusing on our economy. Again, we're a state of small towns and small businesses. As I crisscross the state, small businesses, whether it's a cleaning services, it doesn't matter. But they're telling me their cash flows are down about 60%, some 80%. There's a real need for another round of PPE. But it doesn't stop there, Dave. I've been reaching out to mayors in all 99 counties because, well, one, they lead everybody all the time. And so wanting to understand how they're doing. And I got to tell you, we've got communities across the state who are struggling. We've got counties that their budgets are struggling. That's where our first responders, our police officers, our sanitation workers, those folks that keep us healthy and safe are working. And we need to make sure that if they need direct aid, we can get some direct aid to them. Those are some of the places I would start. And I've certainly put out a couple plans that give more details on where my priorities would be, Dave.
Okay, great. Okay, well, final question. Just want to, how are you feeling about your campaign? Obviously, the polls show it could the final outcome could be fairly close. I guess how do you view it, and how do you feel about your chances come November 3rd?
Thanks, Dave. Well, we feel fantastic. You mentioned it early on. We know Iowans are independent voters and independent thinkers from, many, many years of electing Republican Senator Chuck Grassley and electing Democratic Senator Tom Harkin, going for Obama twice, going for Trump. 2018, we elected, two new Democratic women to serve in Congress. And so I approach all voters with that attitude. I have friends and family in North Iowa. They're independent. I've been working hard in all 99 counties to ask for their vote, to earn their vote. We're going to continue to do that. And we're going to move this toss-up race, as you mentioned, to the win column. And I'm going to do it because I'm willing to work with anybody to get jobs done and to bring those experiences that I have, whether it's running small businesses, whether it's knowing the tough decisions moms are making at their kitchen tables, and understanding tough economic times on the farm. I'm going to bring all that experience to lead and put Iowa first.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you, Theresa, for joining us today. So.
You bet, Dave. Take care. Please be well. Get healthy soon.
Okay, thanks.